just
Okay.
about any old thing.
Because when I worked at the hospital, that was in critical care. We'd have people come in with weird respiratory illnesses, and you'd come to find out that they raised birds or something, and that was quite often what the thing was. It was pretty weird.
It was called bird flu for a reason.
There you go. All right, so we are live, gentlemen. We are live. Peeks into the past, Tales of Battle Creek, and we are taking a look today at what started out life as the Michigan Central Railroad, and today is Clara's. Clara's on the River Restaurant, and so one of our guests today is Ross Simpson, who is the proprietor of that fine establishment, and he'll be sharing his intimate knowledge of the building. And of course, we have the Reverend Kurt Thornton. This is well, and then Kurt Thornton, and then Randy Case, local architect, preservationist. I think that's a good term. It's official. But hey, welcome, guys. It's good to have you on. Missing Jill tonight. We don't have enough room on our stack to have 5 people. So, Jill, I hope you're watching and cheering us on and taking notes about all our mistakes. So, but she did help in putting together this. So yeah, this is great. So we'll go ahead and jump in, folks. We have 100 slides, and believe me, we had to call them because there's a lot more. So we'll see what we can do. But as you know, you can continue to make comments if you're watching us on our social media channels. You can post questions, or if you have insights that we don't cover, we'd love to hear them, or suggestions, or if you just want to say something to Kurt or me, whatever. So we're just going to jump right in, and let's make sure the technology works. And then we have our first hello. We have our first hello. How about that? First hello of the evening.
Oh.
So we are going. This is where it all started. This is obviously not Clara's on the River, but it is the first Michigan Central Railroad depot that was about where the Kellogg House is today, right, Kurt?
Yep, that's Monroe Street going up on the left-hand side, going up the hill there to where the Tiger Room would be now. The Michigan Central Railroad reached Battle Creek in 1845. We were the furthest west they went at that point. I was showing them in this picture on the bottom right-hand side, there's a turntable, because when they got to Battle Creek to turn the train around, you just didn't back up. You had to actually, they had to pull off and have the engine turned around and taken to the other end of the train to pull it back the other way, but it didn't go to Kalamazoo till the next year. Yeah, this was pretty exciting because it brought commerce to Battle Creek and also helped Battle Creek ship things out. We could actually ship things out to places to make money and got industry going in Battle Creek. Yeah. And I think Matt commented on the high wheeler bicycle that's in the picture. There's someone
against the wall there, those large wheel bicycles. There's a couple of them there. Pretty hard to see in that little photograph, though.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, a little bit.
You can see the shadow of them.
Yeah.
So this photo showed up in the paper a lot through the years. So, and there's another one that's kind of similar to it. And I found this article from Art Middleton, who was a managing editor at the Enquirer for years and years. And he says the photograph, he wrote, and this was looking back at 1861, but it was located at North Monroe Street. Perhaps some of those who gathered in front of the stations for this photograph were in the crowd of 1,500 who cheered the boys off to war while the Silver Cornet band was playing. And it must have been an engine such as this. And he was referring, of course, to the Civil War. Mm-hmm. So that's where we got started. And we'll just jump in.
Also, while we're talking about this, how these depots became kind of the social center of the community. It's where everybody met and talked and, had things going on. And it's kind of a continuation of its life as it goes into Clara's on the River.
Yeah.
Well, initially these were telegraph stations too, so all the news came in here. Also, was where most of the information came into the city was from the telegraph and the people, passengers coming in on the trains.
Yeah. Got a few more comments from C.W. Post College of Long Island University. How about that? And we'll see the college's namesake in one of these slides. So let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Folks can see how we have historians are a gabby bunch, as Liz Newmeyer likes to say, and we could spend an hour on one photo.
Just again.
And we have actually.
Move along.
So this is just a postcard, and we have many at the archive at Willard Library. But I thought that we've had a few up, and I just thought this was kind of a beautiful postcard. You see people coming in. Randy, why don't you talk a little bit about the architecture of the building?
Okay, well, it's kind of a Romanesque architectural piece, and it's interesting about the shapes of the roofs and all. And they originally were a clay tile, and you can see at this end, where right now it's called the ladies' retiring room. There's a little point there on top of that little turret, and if you watch the ridge from, there's a chimney there, and you can see there was a bunch of tiles that ran right into the top of that peak on the back side. And we were, when we were looking at this earlier, that usually is a place for problems where water can track and all kinds of different things. So it's an interesting design and very detailed. But as you see when we go through the processes, that peak there kind of goes away.
Yeah. And this was done by a number of these style train depots were built between Detroit and Chicago. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was something in McFarland.
Rogers and McFarland. They
were out of Detroit. A fantastic architectural firm.
Yeah.
They did amazing buildings in Detroit and several train depots. As Randy said, it was Romanesque style. They actually called this Richardsonian Romanesque.
Romanesque, okay. Yeah.
After Richardson, who was probably the most prominent train depot designer. He started out in the East Coast, and did some fantastic buildings. And they were so prominent that the other architectural firms copied him. So that's why they call it Richardsonian Romanesque.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
That,
Well,
and by the way,
you like to use-
Randy was talking about the ladies' retiring room, that round room there. I was told that we have one of those round rooms on this end, and the other one was on the other end of the main depot, which is now our lounge where the bar is. So those two round rooms were meant to emulate the wheels of a train.
Oh,
And
wow.
the tower was meant to be the smokestack of a train.
Okay.
That's what
Oh,
That's really neat. And one of the cool things about this, and we'll spend a little time on it, is just, Randy, you had mentioned that, these were sort of like the social centers of the community, and things really grew up around them. And I'm just fascinated to see how the city has changed around this. I mean, you can see when it started, it was very almost bucolic. I mean, there was like a farmhouse there. I didn't mean to forward it.
there weren't a lot of large arched spaces in Battle Creek at that time, and that was one of the things. The Port Couture where you come in and all that kind of thing. The large arches are again the Richardsonian Romanesque detail and so forth. So you can see that was quite interesting at that time.
Yeah.
And in this picture, you can see on the far left-hand side, there's a house right behind the train station. And as I was telling him earlier, before the trains came through, that was a street right there. And so that house was facing a road. But when the railroad came through, the railroad laid tracks down the middle of the street. And people wanted it because they wanted trains coming into town. So this was a big honor to have a train even run in front of your house. So it wasn't a bad thing. These people were thinking it was great. So, but I always think it's funny because you look at that house, you go, why is that house facing the back of the train station? It's like, it didn't used to be.
Yeah, it used to be facing the street.
Yep.
And just some of the landmark buildings, just kind of going clockwise, obviously you have the park, and that's something else we can talk about is just how these stations, I mean, they were meant to be like welcoming and sort of sell the city, and you have this beautiful park and the Ward Monument there. Up on the left, we have Presbyterian Church, and then you can see the dome of the Congregational Church. I think number 4 is what was then known as the YWCA. Today we call it the Miller Stone Building. This Catholic Church is number 5, and that replaced the building that burned in what year, Kurt? Can you remember?
No, I can't. Nope.
Somewhere I may have it written down.
Kurt, you were, in your youth.
I'm going to be in trouble for that now. So.
And we have the Kellogg plant up there, number 6. Am I right about that?
I believe so. Yep.
And 7, consumers and energy. 8 is what we know of today as the Tiger Room.
Yep.
At the time, that was part of that building. Was that part of the American?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Or American Steam Pump. I'm sorry, American Steam Pump or American Marsh.
American Marsh. That's number 10.
Yep.
11 is the Ward Building, which was quite a landmark. The first building between Chicago and Detroit of steel structure. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And then 12, the Enquirer and News,
Mm-hmm.
when it was on State Street. So just kind of a cool area of the city.
And like you said, everything was centered around, the train station. It was, and you didn't even mention Willard Library there in the background. It's like,
yeah, how about that? In Willard Library. Well, we have it again here. And this is one of Kurt's late editions. Folks keep sending me photos and photos and photos, and I try to get them all in. But this one just came in, and it's a really neat photo. This shows the entire south side of the building. This was shot, Kurt, from
the Post Tavern.
Oh.
Huh. Post Tavern. The Elks Temple is on the left-hand side and in the foreground, and the Post Building is on the right-hand side in the foreground. You can see the railing from the Post Building, but that's a close check because you can see Willard Library and the St. Thomas, and apparently, like I said, this is before the fire at St. Phil because it's the old St. Phil there, and it doesn't look like the Presbyterian Church was there yet. So the Congregational Church dome you can see off in the distance. But yeah, the station was such a beautiful place, and I like this picture because you get to actually see the whole front of the station, or the whole, depending on what you call the front or the back of the station. But I always call this the front. So,
and we do have a sharp viewer here who points out that a couple of them, that the church St. Phil burned in 1928.
Okay,
and the new building was built in 1929. So we'll go back to these and keep going through.
It's interesting. Look at that beautiful building.
Yeah.
I was in Europe, and it occurred to me that our depot, built in 1888, would have been new construction over there. In a lot of ways. But our country was so young, and it grew so fast. Really, the only people that had the money to build substantial buildings that we still adore today are government, churches, and then the railroad companies. There were several railroad companies that all had similar schedules, went to similar towns, and the way they got people to enjoy their company was they build the nicest depots. So this was kind of a sales pitch that they would invest in these depots, and hopefully that their customers would ride their trains because of the depots. So, and we're lucky in Battle Creek, we have 2 remaining beautiful depots.
Beautiful depots. And I don't know that we have an answer, but this is from the north side of the building, obviously, and you can see that the park is in front of it before the monument was built. And a lot of comments about the dormers, and someone else had called the library the other day and asked me about that tiny little dormer there in the middle, and we're all just kind of puzzled as why it was there.
Right.
Because it's very tiny. I mean, you could barely probably walk into it to be able to look out that window. It had to be really, really small.
Yeah.
I was just noticing
these architects.
I was just noticing how the telephone pole stuck right next to the entrance there. Like, that was good planning too. Whoever did that.
So maybe it was a big plumbing vent and they wanted to hide it.
There you go.
I was going to say these architects, like, they have their own little flourish.
Yep.
And not only is that dormer gone, but on the other side there were 2 eyebrow dormers. They call them eyebrows because they were the shape of your eyebrow. And they're gone. One of these days, if I ever sell enough hamburgers, I'll bring them all back.
Ross, I'll do this early because I'll forget to say you guys have done a beautiful job on the building, and Randy, you were involved in it. Thank you so much, because wow, it's great. So anyhow, well, thank you again a few times while we go through this, because
we'll get lots of chance. Here's another. It's just another beautiful shot. You see the tracks, you can see the park behind, and again, up there on the far right next to the flag, you have the old number 1 school, the original high school. I don't know if it's the original, but and then you can see the dome there next to on the observation dome.
Yep.
on Battle Creek Central.
Observation dome. Yep. Uh-huh.
Was it a telescope, Kurt,
Yep.
or was it a planetarium?
Yep. They had a telescope up there. Yep.
And this doesn't show the station, but again, Kurt sent this to me. I just think it's a gorgeous photo. And you get a better look at the Battle Creek Central High School, and then the number one school behind it.
Yeah, I was telling Mac when I was looking at these pictures, I'm always thinking Battle Creek Central, the school that's there now, is such a huge building, and I always think it's so tall. You look at the old number one that's sticking up behind it that was also just 3 floors, but it was also explained to me that air circulation was a big problem back in the early days, so that's why the rooms were so much bigger in the building, even though old number one was also 3 stories and also was Battle Creek Central. It's towers over the the present school building.
Where's this picture taken from?
This looks like it was probably taken from the top of the Elks Temple.
Oh.
You're looking at McCamley Street.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you're ever interested in the old number one building, we have a beautiful picture of it in our lounge at Clara's on the wall. If you want to see it.
We have Dave Eddy checking in, saying, "Hey guys."
Hey, Dave.
Dave Eddy,
Good morning.
regular Clara's.
Mm-hmm.
You're up kind of late tonight, aren't you, David?
So let's see if we can get on to the next one here. My technology is not cooperating very much. This obviously shows the south side and the river. I'm just curious because I didn't know what that building was on the other side of the bridge. It was before the Ward building was built, which was built in 1905. And I don't know if anybody has a clue. But to the left of that is the
American Steam Pump.
That's right, yes.
Yep. I had to review this before because I could never remember these things off the top of my head. So I have it written down that makes me look like I'm really smart on this stuff, but I have it all written down. So
You are really smart on this
yeah,
stuff.
there we go. The building off the distance, it's really hard to tell because the river takes a curve off in the distance. You can't see. It would take a curve to the right. So that may be not over the river. That might be something on the just south side of the train tracks off in the distance.
Yeah.
Hey, Kurt, isn't that about where the what did we call it? The sluice for the Mill River. What's the name of that?
Yeah,
Mill race?
The mill race, but that would
Mill
have
race,
been
thank
right.
you.
Wouldn't have been
Isn't that about where it entered?
it would have been off to the right here, but past the bridge to the right, it would have been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that came from the Kalamazoo River and connected to the Battle Creek River.
Right.
They use that to power their mills and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, look at the high water there.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, flooding was always an issue here. Here, it's not quite over the banks, but you see the water right up to the water there.
Yeah. Right. It looks like it's over the top of the opening there under the Ward building.
Yeah.
If any of you out there are boaters, you'd always look at a picture like that and say, "River's up." Over to the right-hand side, you can see those advertisements. You'll see these more often than some of the pictures, but those are billboards aimed at railroad customers.
Mm-hmm.
It gets advertising to tell people when they get off the trains what restaurants to go to and what cigarettes to smoke and all that kind of stuff.
Did the station ever flood? Because all the pictures I ever see of it are like this. And down further to the east, the river, the ground flooded. But I never saw the pictures of the actual station being flooded.
I haven't seen them either. I've been told it did.
Okay.
Obviously, before the Army Corps of Engineers took care of that.
That's with our concrete ditch.
Yeah.
You get a clear look at the old Catholic church there, right over the roof there of the station too.
Yep.
I got to be moving along. We got a lot of slides to go through.
And my technology here, I keep hitting advance and it's not moving.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Well, you did mention the tall spire of St. Thomas. You can see that almost sticking out of the top of the train station. But
there you go. And then
oh, look at all of it.
now it's going to catch up to me.
Oh.
they're flying now.
So this is just a nice shot in 1911, and you can see the post buildings back there.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And you can see the Presbyterian church that's in front of the Post Tavern.
Hmm.
in the roof of that. I think that's Dave Eddy in the picture over there in the right, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
teenager.
horse and buggy, right?
Here's a similar vantage point, but obviously after the construction of the towers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice cars.
Beautiful cars.
Yeah.
That corner of the building, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
was the ladies' waiting room, restroom.
Retiring.
Well, ladies' retiring room was the round area, but the
Right.
corner closest to us, which would be the northeast corner, was the ladies' restroom.
Okay.
And I mentioned this earlier. When we bought the building, of course, the attorneys took a look at any clouds or marks on the title, and one of the problems was that corner physically was the restroom, but it was also the Willard Library had the right to use it for their female customers. Use the bathroom. And we had to get rid of that cloud. Since then, the Willard Library built a restroom for the girls. Thank goodness. So we asked the library, I was, okay, how do we get you off our title here? And we owned 3 parking spots into their parking lot. So we swapped the parking spots for them to get lost on the ladies' waiting room. And it worked out well for everybody.
And so just moving along, a nice shot. You see the Ward building, you see the library, and you see the station there.
And there's that dormer.
And there's that dormer. And so now we kind of get into some of the details. And so what's the first thing we put up there? That bench, which we talked about a lot. But it's still there, or not in that spot. But
Well, the tilt-in windows. In those days, that was quite unusual to have a tilt-in window.
Oh,
Ventilation. And so
I took this picture right after the fire, and they pulled this. This was one of the pieces of furniture they brought out of the building because they got it out of there because of the fire. So that sat outside for a long time, though, before you moved it around and put it in the entryway.
Right.
Once again, really cool that you have done that. It's like,
It needed some loving too.
yeah, you can imagine.
A lot of sanding and
a little refinishing, yeah.
a little bit.
Well, and that's kind of the story of the whole building. These are just some of the architectural details that Kurt, you sent us these photos, I believe.
Yeah. I just liked it because each one is a different motif. I mean, each one is different. It's the little design things are, I was surprised when I went out and photographed these in probably the 1980s. But it was just, each one is different. And Ross has done a real nice job. They've added some new ones to the building, which are beautiful.
Well, replace the ones that had failed.
Yep, but that's great that they've done a beautiful job replacing them. It's just great.
Yeah. Well, the issue with this material is it's Lake Superior red sandstone, and it's very porous. And over time, it just kind of turns back into sand.
Yeah, this was a man and a woman space. I thought that was interesting. A man on one side and a woman on the other.
As the train station itself was set up. This room here was originally the ladies' waiting room. And then if you're familiar with Clara's, where our lounge and bar area, that was the men's waiting room. And they were purposely kept apart.
Right, yes.
And the ladies got all the good stuff. They got the fireplace and they had the indoor plumbing, the restroom. The guys had to share the outdoor facilities with the workers.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I was told is because the women had class and the men were crass. By the way, Naomi was one of our early employees.
Oh.
She used to be a waitress at Clara's, and I'm hoping there are several of our past staff here. I feel like I've raised most of the children.
Well, this picture is when this was used as an office space, right?
Yeah, this
Great
was
room.
a great office, and you couldn't see it.
Right.
In its day, where that archway is, they filled it in, and there was a door. So this was not part of where you could go as a train customer.
I'm always amazed at the spindle design over the archway on the left-hand side. And you said you've had to replace some of them, but still, I was always amazed when you opened the building up that was all still there.
It was mostly intact. The ones we had to replace were our fault because we had a buster carry a table on his head and smacked into it on the way out of that room.
But still, it's. I was a little surprised when I saw that. That was just beautiful. I thought, is that something new? Going new?
No.
That bench in the middle is the one we still have. I think it's fascinating. They had 3 of those benches.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is where is this now, Ross?
This, if you walked in our front door and turned to the right and looked that way, that towards what is now the raised platform area, and then where the bar is now, that's where you're looking. That the window, that's the first one. That's kind of left center. That you could peek through there and see into what we call our tower room, but that was the ticket office originally. And then that train bulletin board is still at Clara's. It's inside the tower room up on the wall. But that's where they would announce the times for trains going east and west. Chicago, Detroit, Port Huron.
There it goes. And so this is kind of just a gratuitous shot. We got to get John Harvey Kellogg in here, but I wanted to share some of the images of some of the history that just took place there. And this is probably in the 30s. Don't know who he's speaking with, but
that desk behind him, that tall desk, that was the porter's desk.
I wonder what that was. I said it was a big, tall piece of furniture. So
yeah, he was keeping track of not only luggage but freight and people and all kinds of things.
Cool.
That shows up in a couple times of these pictures.
And this is just you call it a riding club, I think.
Yeah, that's on the back
of the riding club.
Yep.
In Battle Creek.
Uh-huh.
We've used that picture recently to demonstrate that Claire's now has delivery, and we have riders and drivers waiting to deliver our food to your home.
So, and this is one of the early VIPs, President Taft, September 21st, 1911. And you can see there's the Battle Creek Enquirer. 40,000 welcomes President Taft. That's a lot of people, more than lived in the town. And the photo, the image behind there is pretty cool too. You see Dr. Kellogg in the white. You see CW Post with the fedora. I think that's called a fedora. I might be wrong about that.
I thought it was a Stetson, but I thought it was the Stetson hat he always wore. But
yeah,
you're right.
Not a fedora, but yeah, it's a hat.
It's a That's why I bring on all you smart people to correct me when I make the wrong thing.
We're happy to do it.
And I just like to throw you softballs. But no, and this is a really cool story behind this photo too. But you see CW Post with his Stetson up on the stage. You see Taft in the middle there waiting for people to arrive, and then you see the empty seats. So which one of you wants to tell the story?
I'd always heard the story that Dr. Kellogg did not like CW Post at all because supposedly he thought CW had borrowed many of his ideas and made money off them. So he didn't want to sit next to CW Post, so he placed his hat on the chair next to him. So when you see in this picture, the white hat is next to Dr. Kellogg, and CW Post is one seat away, so they're not actually sitting right next to each other. So.
Yeah.
And there was an additional story that kind of threw some more color about this day. In the Battle Creek Moon, there was a story about the two of them wanted to be the last one to sit down. So everybody sat down except for the two of them. And they each tried to fake each other out. Like they went to sit down, they stood back up. And it went back and forth for some time, enough to everybody noticed, and the reporter wrote a story about it. But I think Post finally sat down, and then John Harvey got this ball rolling and sat down and let the president speak.
And this just kind of shows you the magnitude of the crowd, which is really interesting.
For television and iPhones, this is what you had to do.
Yeah, there's the War Monument. Also, you can see that. So that whole field there behind the depot is full of people, because that's out in the middle of the field.
Does the library still have those flags, Mac? Does the library still have those flags they have hanging on the building?
I don't know.
Would they be in the history room?
They're not in storage, so. Oh, and we just heard from Bruce. Bruce, stick in my direct message. Stick around, Bruce. You see your picture here before long. Bruce Phillips, who maintains the trains, the model train at Clara's, right,
It
Ross?
sure does.
Yeah.
So, let's see if we can move forward here. Technology is great when it works.
That was a large area. Not only was that all of what we see today as we call it the library parking lot, but
Right.
the library addition wasn't there either. So all that square footage was all filled with people and then wrapped all the way around the building. So 40,000 people doesn't sound out of reach.
No. So, and this is another big event. This is 1914. You're always taking a little bit of educated guess with some of these images because they're not necessarily marked and they're not necessarily dated. But this is, I believe, is when CW Post casket came into town at Michigan Central. And the little news clip up there in the upper right is from the Battle Creek Daily Journal, which I always thought was kind of interesting because if you go back and look at the archive, there was like a big political fight going on in Battle Creek at the time. And Post and Mayor Bailey were at odds. And the Daily Journal was clearly like partisan for Mayor Bailey and just skewered him. And yet when he died, this was the kind of coverage that the Daily Journal provided. The king is dead. And that's a piece of the poem there. There's his casket.
Isn't that just a beautiful earth?
It really is. And then in 1916, Teddy Roosevelt came to town. So Roosevelt Day.
That is looking towards the west from now Division Street, right?
Capitol Avenue. This is
Capitol Avenue.
Right.
Back at the depot. And you can see at the bottom there, they called it Roosevelt Day. And whenever the president came to town, it was their day. There was Taft Day, and this was Roosevelt Day.
Yeah, this thing is slow. So we decided this is Alf Landon, who ran against the other Roosevelt in Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1936. And there you can see him on the back of the train.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the big speakers over his head there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed that people didn't fall onto the tracks. I'm sorry, I know that they didn't, but you look at these crowds, you're going like, good Lord, there's a huge crowd of people. And a dog.
Yeah, poor white dog looked like he's going to fall into the lake or
The river.
You see that pipe coming out of the side of the hill below that road?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't gross you out, but in the day, there was no such thing as sewers.
Yep.
Rivers were essentially sewers.
Uh-huh.
And when we took over the building, we had to figure out where all the plumbing was going. And much to our amazement, it was all going to the river. So we were the first one to actually connect a sanitary sewer to Battle Creek's sanitary sewer system, which was quite a job.
Not bad.
So, indirectly, folks, we've helped clean up our environment.
Another thank you, Ross. Thank you so much.
So we don't have to open a restaurant without it. But
This was the Willard Library, the edition being going on in the 20s. This would
30s.
30s, probably 30s.
Yeah, 36. This is Alf Landon still.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yep, building the addition. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's quite a chunk of scaffolding up there in the left side.
I think this presentation is so big, and I'm doing it online. And this is another photo that this is the same event, but this is on the front, or what was the front of the library, right, Kurt?
Yes, the pillar on the right is one of the pillars that faces Capitol Avenue on the front of Willard Library. That's the American Steam Pump Company across Capitol Avenue from Willard Library.
Oh, huh. Okay.
beautiful building.
Uh-huh.
And very polished pillar.
Yeah. And then, of course, Ronald Reagan was here in 1980. And you can actually see Gerald Ford there on the die. Ronald Reagan shaking hands. I think, with Mayor Donald Sherrod.
Okay, yep.
And that's Governor Milliken
Yep.
in the trench coat.
Yep.
And someone climbed up on the roof and put balloons on the top of the station. Now that was challenging, but there's signs up there too, I guess. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, notice the roof there too. It's the shingled roof now after some of the fires and all that.
No, that was hideous, but
It was a kind of a grayish and pinkish thing.
it protected the building. That was the most important part. So.
And the different sections didn't match each other.
No.
It was quilted, basically.
Now, this is the turbo liner going through Battle Creek. I was telling Mac this was the big thing was it was the train was made, I believe, in Canada or France. Can't remember what I told you, Mac. I wrote you something. It's the turbo liner from I think
I don't remember that part.
let's say it's from France. It was probably Bruce is going, oh my God, he's got this wrong. What is he doing? But I think, but this was really cool. They were showing how the Amtrak was trying to come up with new and modern ways to transport people around the country. So they were trying.
And you said this was 75.
Okay, yep.
It was interesting today at the Rotary Club. There was a discussion about the high-speed rail coming through Battle Creek, and I thought that was interesting.
They've only been talking about that for the past 30 years.
Yeah, I know.
So this is just an old ticket, but I thought it would be fun to show some of the engines, especially back in the day. And I forgot to mention that the station opened July 27th in 1888 as Michigan Central, and New York Central took over in 1918 and had it for the most of its life before Pennsylvania Central took it over in 1968. But so. And as I confessed to you guys, I don't know anything about these trains except that that they were Michigan Central engines. And Bruce, if you have anything to comment, I'm watching your comments come in. And then the folks at the New York Central System Historical Society, they have a great site, which I can give you a link to. But this is a neat photo because you see the tower behind that.
The Word Building. I can see the Word Building in the background.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
It's interesting how all the piping and so forth on the outside of this engine compared to the other ones.
Yeah. And then here you see that's the post plan.
Yep.
I believe in the background.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yep. Well, that's great.
Yeah. The size of these things were just so impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine if you live next to it, dealing with the soot was the price you paid. And there you see the station in the background.
I'll try not to go off track too much. When I was in high school, we went to Romania. The choir did, and it was amazing. The most amazing thing there is their whole country still used steam engines. So you'd go past a yard that would have like 30 of these steam engines chugging back and forth, moving things around, and they were still working. And in fact, that was 1973. And lots of them were ours that we'd given them after World War II. But it was amazing to see these huge steam engines just move this stuff around.
And this was actually at the centennial event, and New York Central had several exhibits as a part of that, celebrating the centennial of the.
One of the pleasures of working in that building every day and inviting people from Battle Creek and all over the world to come inside so we can feed them. I get to hear stories every day about the depot, and I can't tell you how many times someone has said, "Hey, I left for war," or "My father left for war from this building."
Yeah.
The ones that tell me that they left, I love saying, "Hey, and by the way, you came back."
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't,
Yeah.
or they did in a different condition, certainly.
Yeah.
But the memories inside that building are phenomenal, and a ton of them have to do with defending our country.
Yep.
Yeah. A couple of diesel engines there, passenger rail. And then
this is in 1965 when they decided to put the parking structure over the Battle Creek River in front of the station. That was the State Street parking lot. I looked this up because I had to. It was $535,000 for them to build this parking structure over the river, which when people would come here, they'd go, "Why did you cover up the river?" And you're going, "Well, we needed parking spaces, and that's what you did."
When was it done again?
1965.
It looks like there had been another fire because the top of the tower was black again.
I think it was just always
Several.
And there was also a silver or chrome fire plug on State Street, which I've heard the rumor of, and I remember it. Someone, the city fire marshal, paid for it because for some special reason, as a commemorative thing. So it was the only one in the country. It was a chrome fire plug that was on State Street.
Really?
Yeah.
So there you see the lot. Yeah, parking's always been sort of a controversial thing in Battle Creek.
Yeah.
And then there it's torn down, and you shared that there was some people annoyed. Kurt?
Well, I told Mac in 1985 they decided to tear it off, which is what this picture is. They're tearing the parking structure off. Some people were mad because the story was that the city still hadn't finished paying for it when they tore it down.
Oh.
So I don't know if that's a fact or not, but that was the story we heard that people were really unhappy about that. So, but I'm really glad they uncovered the river because it's beautiful and it's an asset to the city. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And then we were talking about this fire, I think, if I got the right fire.
Yeah.
September 3rd, 1977.
70.
Shoot, I wrote it down.
This picture doesn't have any smoke coming.
71. Okay.
And there some great friends and customers of ours were involved with this, with putting out the fire. And they said it was 95 degrees that day. And should I tell how it started?
Absolutely.
This is the
Sure, go for it.
of the show.
Something spontaneously combusted?
Well, it did. And I found out about, I didn't live in the area at the time. And I heard the story first from a fire inspector that was watching our progress. And he was, compared to the other inspectors, he was kind of grumpy. And so I had asked him, I said, "Hey, did we do something to upset you? I kind of noticed whenever you're here, you're just not in a good mood." He says, no, Ross, it's not you. He says, "I just hate this building." I said, "Oh, you really hate the building?" He said, "Well, yeah, it's not really the building. It's the worst fire I was ever in was in this building." I said, "Oh, it was a terrible fire?" He said, "No, it really wasn't even the fire." He said it was, it started in the attic when it was a train station. And it spontaneously combusted from pigeon dung. And he was up in the attic and he put his hand over his chest. He says, "I was up to here in pigeon dung." And I said, "Say no more, I understand." My customers would be glad to know that it was cleaned up long before we got and it's cleans the whistle up in our attic, right?
This is not the same fire.
No.
The aftermath of the same fire, no.
Well, it's parts of the same fire, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the roof, but I took this picture, it was after the ticket booth that they had outside of the building burned, because that's what the building is in front of it, was they put that mobile home ticket booth out there, and that caught on fire and burned the freight house in this picture. This is from that.
And the reason why they put those mobile offices and waiting rooms there is because they were working on the core building. You can kind of still see where they're working on those peaks.
Yeah.
You see the soot coming out of the tower. They were working at restoring that section, so they brought in additional storage space and office space and customer space. And then that thing burned. So now we got another fire at the other end of the building.
Well, and Kurt, you had said that when you took those photos, you really thought that was the end of the building, right?
Oh yeah, I was sure they were going to tear it down. It's like I don't know. I used to go down to the station at night and sit there and talk to it because I told them I was trying to save it, but I didn't have the money or the ability to do it. So I was doing the best I could. So I was just trying to record it before it was gone. Yeah. But once again, I'm so glad you preserved it, and it's such a beautiful job. This is showing that initial fire where the fire burned through the roof.
Right.
And you can see how it just burned open the roof out. And you're looking at it thinking like, there's no way they're going to fix this because it's an old building. I'm sorry, people just tear the stuff down. But luckily they did not.
You can see the smoke coming out of the tower too there.
The soot, yep.
Soot or something, yeah.
Well, one of the reasons why it was saved or didn't burn all the way down. First of all, Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the walls in there are in some areas 3 feet thick of brick. As a matter of fact, we just unfortunately had a wonderful customer. She went to park the other day, hit the gas instead of the brake, and hit the building and totaled her car and bounced 5 feet back, and not even a scratch to the building at all. But the rafters were made out of quarter stone oak, which is pretty close to the strength of steel. They would char, but they wouldn't burn all the way through. Yeah. And so the structure lived. So
yeah,
there you go.
So kind of pushing us through. You can see where they're starting the construction of what now we know today is the linear park and the park along the river. But this was also a time when you really, you all were really involved in the preservation of this building. And I pulled this ticket from our archive. Kurt, this is your artwork.
Yep.
For the July 27, 1988 party.
Yep.
And why don't you all just go ahead and talk about that while I kind of slide through these slides.
Well, Randy, I don't know. I mean, I know my mom was involved because she wanted them to do some kind of recognition of the building because we were afraid, once again, they were going to tear it down. The city was not sure what they wanted to do with it. And they were always talking about knocking the building down. So we decided to have a birthday party to bring attention to the building. And so even though the building wasn't open, we went down there and set this up outside and had displays. Randy, you brought displays from the your architecture group and had displays there. And we had the train there that Bruce had set up. This is Dorothy and Michael Martage, who were active in Battle Creek history. This is
who is that handsome?
I don't know who that guy is.
Look at all that hair.
He used to have hair, yeah. Yeah, this was actually what happened is after we got, we saved the Grand Trunk Depot for the Community Action Agency. And after that was saved, they kind of thought, oh, well, we saved that depot so we can let the other one go. There was a lot of talk about that. And so, yeah, the birthday party was really an important aspect. I think it was a little bit of a turning point because we started getting signatures to bring to the city commission. And I remember that the balloon festival was after this and all that. So we had a lot of people out and people signed up to save the depot. And so we presented the signatures to the city commission and actually kind of stayed its execution.
So this was
the former Regional Al Bobrovsky speaking, the mayor at the time, and this is Marlene Steele, who was in charge of the history room at Willard Library speaking. Mr. Brower is on the right. He was the president of the Historical Society at the time. And there we are blowing up balloons. And we had to put the sign over the entryway there because people had painted graffiti on the plywood. So we had to try to cover it up. And there's Bruce Phillips on the right there, Michael Martage on the left, and my father in the shorts in the center.
I just want to know what Bruce just said because he's got that cat ate the canary grin. Your dad's kind of looking at him askance, and Michael is just like almost pretending it didn't just happen. He didn't say that, right? I'm pretending a little bit, but I've spent a little time around Bruce. And
yeah, your dad's got a funny look on his face, doesn't he? Maybe Bruce remembers that.
That was Bruce or that's indigestion, one of the two. Anyways, I don't know if we mentioned this, but the building, the depot was built in 1888, so the 100th anniversary. This was 1988.
Yes.
Which, by the way, was just a year before we got involved.
Yeah.
That's Orville Convis. He was active in the Historical Society, and his family were some of the founders of our city. Ezra Convis would have been his relative that founded Verona. And my mother's in the background on the left there. My mom's
yeah.
I think that this actually kicked off the whole idea that brought Clara's to town.
Yeah. There's Duff Stoltz on the left.
On the left, yep. But quite a few people showed up, which we were really surprised because we weren't sure because it was just a sort of a grassroots kind of thing we did. There's Bruce.
Boy and his toys.
Is that the same train that he has in your lobby? Do you know? Well, he could probably tell us if that's the same train. I can't tell. It looks about the same size, but
it's a good size one.
Well, he's got quite a collection.
It was nice to be part of the event.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so this just kind of the headlines of the day. I mean, there's this quite an effort. At one point, they were looking at a cultural arts center for the depot.
We looked at all kinds of different options for uses and stuff through the years, trying to get something to happen that wouldn't require a lot of nonprofit funding. So it was nice that a for-profit business could take it over.
Yeah.
Do a great job like Ross has done.
Yes. Yeah, I was on the Historical Society board, and each meeting I would suggest make a motion that we buy the station, and no one would second it. So they would just be tabling it.
So now we're getting into some slides that really kind of document and I'm going to move pretty quickly, but just keep talking.
This is the freight house, isn't it? This is the freight house part.
It was called the baggage building.
Yep.
It still is, it is, but we also call it Nora's room, which you're familiar with our layout inside Clara's. And this actually is part of our deconstruction. We had to take down the center section, which is now our fabric ceiling room, because it was so badly damaged. And it really wasn't.
Yeah. This is where the addition came.
Correct.
Between the main building and
the core building to
and it was originally a covered area for people to wait with their baggage and so forth, but it had been kind of destroyed a bit.
Yeah, it was originally called the Breezeway. When it was open on either side, and you could walk through from the parking lot to the trains and vice versa.
I had to duck out because my computer was about to die. But you can see some of the interior here.
Oh, yeah.
What you had to work with.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was.
Isn't it about where the lady hit the building? Did she hit it right over there?
Right, yeah, where that,
Yep,
where that filing cabinet's laying on the side, yeah. Sorry, not to embarrass her if she's watching. You didn't mention your name.
There's Randy giving my mother and father a tour of the building while they, and my sister's there also, Kathy, while they were renovating the building. We're looking at that spindle area.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that. We were wondering how long it would take for somebody to hit it.
Let's give her a break. A couple of inches from gas to brake pedal. Real quick, I'm going to give a shout out. Oh, please
go back.
No, it's fine.
Isn't it?
We're going to change the order. Well, okay. Shout out to how we got involved with this. Obviously, Randy and the whole group, Save the Depot Committee, did all the work to stop the wrecking ball. And then, as I said, we got involved in 1989. It all started with this good-looking gal that came up to our Lansing Clara's and was there finishing her dinner and was wandering around looking at things and bending her neck and looking around. And we can spot a first-time customer from across the room. And I struck up a conversation with her, and her name was Marty, still is, Marty Hanna. And Marty was there for lunch, and she said, this place is beautiful, and we have a depot down in Battle Creek that this would be perfect. And I said, well, we're always looking. And she said, well, my husband's in the real estate business. Do you mind if I send him up? And I said, no, what's his name? His name's Ron Hanna, which, by the way, had the Copper Roof restaurant in downtown Battle Creek and is hopefully listening tonight. But he was in the real estate industry for a long time. And he came up, and, of course, Ron, if anybody knows Ron, he's got the great gift of gab, and he was saying how magnificent our place was in Lansing and how we had to get involved, and this would be perfect in Battle Creek. And I said, well, Ron, I got to tell you, we're always looking, like I told your wife, but we're in the restaurant business. We don't have any money. And he said, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. And the people who were in charge of the project came up to Lansing. We met, and then he came down, and we did figure it out. The city loaned us $1 million interest-free. We
Got historic tax credits.
Michigan National Bank loaned us the additional $750,000, and away we went. And now I'd like to point out that gentleman looking at us in the center of the picture is Peter Jubeck. Peter Jubeck owned Clara's in Lansing. His family did after he was gone. We lost him. He and I were partners in this deal. I was his general manager of the Lansing Clara's. And Pete thought for some reason that I was important for this project, so he, through sweat equity, gave me a third of the project, which, by the way, I had to sign my life away to do with the banks. And then Pete owned 2/3, and we had a great partnership for many years. And I still was directing things up in Lansing as well. Unfortunately, we lost Pete in 2003 to esophageal cancer. At that point, I, through deathbed conversations, purchased his portion of the building here and agreed to keep the family safe from additional debt. And his son and daughter went on and ran the Lansing Clara's. I just helped them occasionally, but they did a fine job up there until recently it was sold. But that's basically how we got involved. And now you're about to see how involved we were.
Yeah.
It was very interesting in the city at the time. I think Rance Leaders, what was his title at that point?
The city
manager. Okay, he was pretty open-minded about this whole approach, and kind of helped foster that. And we have a debt of gratitude to the whole community at that time that would step up and really do the right thing.
You really did.
It's also nice. We have to do a little plug for the historic tax credits, because that helped us as well. You have the federal tax credits.
I want to mention now about the ceilings, because I know when Randy, we took him in there, I thought they were all new ceilings, and no, these were the original ceilings. They just stripped them, and once again, they're beautiful. You look up there, and it's all the natural wood now. It's I mean, you're looking at these pictures, and I'm thinking, my God, that's just a beautiful, beautiful ceiling.
Yeah,
they were all coated with paint.
Yeah, they were bad.
Yeah,
and the paint was kind of falling from the various fires and so forth. And so but it had a nice coat of varnish on it, which separated the paint, and it made it come off a little easier.
In this one, you can see the fireplace on the left is covered in this picture. The fireplace, you cannot see it because they covered it up.
Oh, and you can recognize the great hall, the dining hall there.
Yep, the windows. Yep, that is just beautiful.
And this actually kind of shows
the difference. Yep.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
And those of you that know Clara's, you see those two little black plaques that are in the center on the mantle there. Mm-hmm. And there's a piece of wood behind it, and actually that piece of wood is covering up where they had cut into the mantle to make a header for the door to the closet they made out of the fireplace.
That last picture of the green painted stuff, it was the door that Ross is talking about.
And we have a couple more of those. This is the ticket window that we had in that earlier shot. Is that not right?
On the left, yep.
That's where the drinking fountain was.
Yeah.
Shows that's where the tower room is. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's your fireplace.
And there's your fireplace. Yeah, closed.
The door stuck in the middle of it. Yeah.
And then on top of that was pegboard for.
And I took this picture right over the fire. Yep, that's the pegboard in front of the fireplace.
That's what the fireplace looked like.
And that's been closed up for quite a while.
Yeah.
This picture here was a fairly old picture too. It's just
1977.
Just too bad. But anyway, it's there again now.
Here we are again. Yeah.
It was nice that we had one of the little benches inside the recess of the fireplace was there, so you could replicate it. The other one was gone.
I was telling her my mother used to sit there after school to wait for a ride. She would go and sit by the fireplace when she was a little girl.
This gate.
This is. We talked for an hour about this gate all by itself. So
yeah, it was interesting because after we, had gotten in there, they needed to separate this space and all, and in the strict historic standard, this was a something that came from another place, and so you typically don't do that. But it was such a cool thing, and it came from the Sisters of Mercy at Lila Hospital, I believe, and so
Yep.
it fit in there perfectly, and so it just seems to make sense. And Ross has another story that one of his patrons had let him know about.
Well, yeah, when we first opened, you can't see it very well in this picture, but that brass center square says LPH, Lila Post Hospital.
Mhm.
And they approached Pete Jubeck about this, and it fit perfectly in that spot. We were looking for something there.
Yeah.
And then after we opened, there was a table just behind us as we were standing there. And one elderly lady would always come in and sit there and just stare at the gate. And I struck up a conversation with her. And she loved it because her sister designed that gate. And she would sit there and just stare at it lovingly.
Yeah.
So finally, one day she stopped coming in. But it really gave her a lot of pleasure.
Yeah. It's interesting how all the little pieces came together here.
Yeah.
Who is that young guy?
Yeah, it's a little longer there.
Yes.
But
You can still see to this day, if you looked up like you're doing here, see that black soot near the top left there? That's left over from that fire. And we left a little bit of it just to remind people that it happened. And as a matter of fact, there's a picture on the wall of the damage that fire had done.
Yeah.
And all these joists, all those ends of them had to be replaced because they were all charred. So we cleaned it up.
wanted to leave that kind of a transition to kind of honor the historic part of the building, and then it kind of let people know that this is a new addition, but it's done in a compatible way. So we wanted to have the roof kind of fly through the space to show where the end of the historic portion was. It's kind of fun to just leave it there.
By the way, Randy Case and his architectural firm won an award for how he dealt with old versus approaching new.
Yeah.
American Institute of Architects.
Is that you and Randy up there on the roof, Ross?
No, I
don't think so.
But they're kind of moving into some slides just to bring it all up to date, because the work continues on the building, and this happened
2018 we replaced the roof for the second time. That's the last time I'm doing it. The picture on the left is them replacing the roof on the tower as well as on the building itself. And the pictures, the center picture and the picture on the right is us replacing the clock works again for the second time, and again that's the last time I'm doing it.
Thank you for doing that. I never thought I'd ever see that. I never thought I'd ever see that fixed, and that was great when you did that. That was great.
Well, it was interesting because this is the first time the roof had been replaced, if it wasn't, except for by fire in a while.
Right. No, we put a new roof in 1982.
Yeah, I remember that.
It lasted until, well, just barely with gum and plugging holes here and there until 2018.
I like the gentleman writing the device in the far distance there. Is that some kind of thing that pushes the carpet down onto the ground, or?
the adhesive.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, but he had the best job. But this is them recently replacing the carpet.
Yeah.
This is the guys from Battle Creek Glass Works building our new, what we call a curbside service edition, or I lovingly call it my to-go box. And they're building the walls. There were several contractors involved. Help me, Randy. I'm getting.
Well, yeah, there's you got Battle Creek Glass, and then you had Mark Hires from
Sorry, Mark.
Contracting, and then his team,
and Battle Creek Tile did all the flooring.
Great. It's really nice. It's really
That's a
nice.
little thing. You got to have all these people still involved, and you had to have Motor Shop Electric, and I'm trying to remember, it was 100 Pro that did the heating and so forth, or
this was happening while we were shut down for COVID, and it hit us like a ton of bricks that, hey, the restaurant business has changed forever. To-go food is going to be a huge part of it, and we had to do a lot better job than we had done up until this date. So we built this addition, and it has made the job much easier. And I think we're
Randy, I'm glad to see that you do curbside service though in that picture. You're like, Willie, you're ready to go out there and do curbside service. That's what I like from an architect.
Yeah, I'm pretty. You can wonder if I'm going to scare all the people away.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
There's a Mark Hires group.
Trying to greet, yeah.
Who was that, Mark Ross?
It's Mark Hires group in the middle.
Yep.
We're the general contractor. That's Motor Shop Electric. That's Motor Shop Mike, he's called.
Mike Barnard.
Great group of guys, all from Battle Creek.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah.
We chose blue because it matched Randy's shirt.
Yeah, neon was kind of a nice little touch to just float in the glass.
Yep.
Yeah, let's see here. There we go. And then you get to see some of the updates on the inside, the reupholstered booths.
You had to, they were due for sure.
Yeah.
And then they used to have cloth backs, and we said, okay, what cloth we're going to put on there? And we went, wait a minute, you can't sanitize cloth, so everything is sanitizable and vinyl. There's a new carpet in the banquet room.
Yeah.
Looks a little busy in the picture, but it's lovely when you can.
Yeah, it's different with furniture, with dining tables on it. So
Yeah.
Where'd the dormer go? Wait a minute, where's the little tiny dormer?
Been gone for a while.
Long gone.
But you can see the curbside service edition or my to-go box in the corner there.
Yeah.
And by the way, my wife, who's listening, does the flowers up front. Shout out to
Nice job. Nice job. Good
nice
job.
job. Beautiful.
Yep. Yes, it is. It really is.
And I love this little touch. Talk a little bit about the repair work you did, and the mask on that.
Well, I'd been bugging Ross for years about the way the stone is. You can see the upper right hand corner. We were all concerned about it, but of course it's kind of pricey to do it. It was nice that Ross was able to do it at this point in time, and we had a local mason, Matt Pyatt, who does preservation work, and so he got the Lake Superior red sandstone and got it out here, and he did a little embellishment on that. You saw the two pictures before with the female and the man, and this one it has a mask on it. It seemed kind of appropriate for the time frame. Historically not correct, but it's just kind of cool for the era. And I remember I talked to Ross about that one time, and Matt said, well, if he didn't like it, he would he could redo it. But Ross didn't think he liked it at first, but then he came out and took a look, and it seemed like it caught his fancy.
It's almost like a time capsule,
I think in 1988, when they're celebrating the 200th birthday of the place, they'll be able to go. They'll remember what was going on when this was done. They'll go, I remember that pandemic thing going on way back. Our grandparents talked about. They'll go, yeah.
And this is just a shot of summertime, which seems so far away than this cold day in February.
But, yeah.
Entertainment out in the patio. We're so blessed to have that beautiful landscaping in the patio and the river right there. So every summer we have jazz entertainment on the patio, and we all look forward to it. And this is the beginning of us getting ready to only serve on the patio with patio heaters and cabanas, because our dining room was going to have to shut down. So we served people on the patio up until a couple of weeks ago. As a matter of fact, there's Matt Pyatt and Jill Anderson and their son
George. Yeah.
And you can see the little space heater down below them.
Yeah.
And as it got colder, we put roll-up blinds as wind breakers and bought more space heaters and kept it going till mid-January, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, and thanks again to Jill for all her help on putting these shows together.
Mm-hmm.
And there you have folks back inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just recently.
Yeah.
February 1st. We were getting lonely.
The tower room.
Yeah,
So this is the tower room, right?
right?
Yep.
When you can see that stand-up lamp on the right-hand side that used to sit in post's office.
Yep, the post office. Yep.
At that upper level, just above the railroad crossing sign, there's a little ring of wood that goes around the brick there. That is the floor for the station manager's office, and there were joist pockets in the wall there, so put that little piece of trim there to cover that up. We wanted to keep the tower a little taller, but we were going to go all the way up, but our engineers, when they did the analysis on the heat loss and so forth, they said you can drive yourself crazy with heating builds, and so we decided to not go all the way to the top.
That's
I
interesting.
think we have, yeah,
There we go.
demonstrating that.
Yeah,
What's
so
that? What's that out there, Randy?
yeah. Well, this was the way to try to cap it off because our engineers had let us know what the story was. And so we wanted to do something that was kind of cool instead of just blocking it off. And so I know that you and Pete and I were thinking, what are we going to do there? And I remember Pete brought in this god awful rusty giant chandelier he was going to hang in there. And I think I remember talking to you about that. I says, well, hide that in the back room. But anyway, so yeah, what happened is I was at a preservation conference over in Ypsilanti, and I was just walking around after one of the presentations and ran into a little shop. And he had two pieces of art glass that came out of the ceiling in a house in Ypsilanti. It was torn down, and it was like the perfect shape. It had these curves and everything. It was like this Richardsonian Romanesque feeling to it. It was just phenomenal. And I was talking to the guy, and I said, "Wow, it's just too bad you don't have 4 more of these pieces." And he said, "Well, I've got 2 other shops, and this is all one piece that came out of this dining room." And so I asked him, well, how do we get a hold of these things? And he said, well, I just, gather them all for all 3 shops. And I would put a tape on the part of it. And he said that there were, we figured out the rectangular size of it and it worked perfectly in the top of the tower. So I called Pete up on the phone and said, I got this perfect thing here, this beautiful stained glass, and he loves stained glass, so I figured that would be an easy one. And so he authorized me to go ahead and buy these things and have them shipped. So that thing turned out really great. So
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And good story too.
Nice job, Randy.
And I just love this shot.
Mhm.
It's obviously from our Festival of Lights in December, which
Yeah.
we've been involved since a year before we opened.
Yeah. And there's right after they lit up.
The milk. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Love the color of the blue sky.
That's nice. That's really nice.
Yeah.
And is this our last picture?
This is our last picture.
This was taken by Pat and Dronography.
Okay.
Patman
Yeah,
Dronology, right?
yeah, Dronography.
Yeah.
This past December, you can see the festival, our lights and Santa Claus up on the roof there.
Yeah.
Just
I called him, by the way, and he's going to do some drone shots for us when we finish up the Milton.
Oh, okay, great. He's
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. So I talked to him about it, and we got it set up. We might even, we were hoping to do it this week, but man, this is really cold.
It's cold.
A lot of snow and so forth. We need to have lighting that's kind of a nice muted light, not a lot of sun, and kind of gray is kind of good for that. But man, it's a cold one out there. So
Ross, again, I'm going to say thank you guys for what a beautiful place. You've done such a beautiful job. It's a great asset to the city. Whenever people come to town, they're going, where can we go eat? I go, Clara's, and they'll go, that's such a cool place, and they have such a great menu, but the place looks great. Thank you for saving it. Randy, thank you for all the work you did on it, because without you guys, it wouldn't be saved. So thank you.
well, if it wouldn't have been for Ross and his team, it definitely wouldn't have been saved. There's a lot of effort in going through the efforts of running a restaurant is a tough one. And
it's nothing.
my hat's off to you to keep that going.
But I wanted to thank these gentlemen for their constant interest, and certainly the Save the Depot group that actually stopped it from being wrecked. I'm incredibly thankful for that. And by the way, I could work hard and wash as many dishes and cook as many burgers as possible, but what's kept it alive are the people of Battle Creek that come in and enjoy it every day.
Yeah.
We have incredibly loyal, fantastic, wonderful customers, and that's the part that I love. That and my fantastic staff that work their tail off and make me look good.
Yeah. Well, what I love about how this building has endured and the people that made it endured is that it's always been sort of a hub of the community, right? And it remains that. Different use.
Yeah.
But it's the heart of downtown, and it just has so many stories to tell. And just walking around inside of it, it's just full of stories. And I did want to put up, if anybody wants to, thank you so much for the New York Central Systems Historical Society for sharing those images, and check them out. And I think if you like trains, you'll like going there. Next month, we're going to take a look at Kingman Museum. And that's going to be, I think that'll be an interesting program. So look for us on, I can't remember the date. I remember the date. I need to write this stuff down like you, Kurt.
Someplace.
But it's the third Monday.
It'll be announced on the library's Facebook page.
Announced on the, you'll be promoted all over the place. Yes.
And Mac, thank you for Willard Library for doing this, because people really do. People love seeing this stuff. People really do. The community, I'm always glad that people are really interested in history, and you've made this, given this option. This is great, so people can see this stuff. And you're keeping saying there. We have different topics. This is fun.
It is a lot of fun. And I thank you to the viewers who stuck with us for about an hour and 17 minutes in. But I think we did pretty good for 100 slides. I see the numbers start going down a little bit after an hour, but we still have at least 52 live viewers right now, so that's awesome. If you missed it, or if you came in halfway through, you want to see the whole thing, if you want to look at the other ones, we do have these archived on our YouTube channel. And so we've done the Milton, and we've done Irving Park, and we're going to keep these up once a month for at least the next year, maybe forever. Who knows? See how that.
Mac, thank you for this. This has been a lot of fun. You did a great job.
It's a lot of fun to be with you guys, and we'll do something again sometime. So thanks for tuning in, and stay warm. I think we got a break finally coming next week. So a balmy 20-degree day would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. May have to open the patio back up.
Yeah, with low wind velocity.
All right. Well, good night, guys, and good night, folks, and take care.
Thanks for